Roy Williams, welcome to the Way of Champions podcast. It's an incredible honor for Jerry and I to have you on here today.
Thank you very much. You've got a very low bar, though, I can tell you that.
Well, you just said 48 years of coaching and no one enjoyed it more than you. And I mean, I think that says it all right there. And I know that's put a smile on Jerry's face and my face when you said that because I can tell how much you enjoyed it while you were coaching and still to this day.
Yeah. You know what, guys, one of the ways that I gauge it too is in my life, I never one time said I got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's
Mm,
all going good right there.
Yeah.
what a lovely message for our listeners to hear because so many people find themselves complaining. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, I don't have this, I don't have that, and look what you do have, and to realize how fortunate and how blessed we are. So it's good to hear that. That's the first message that we're sending out there today, John, which is a good one.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, Coach, I mean, it was as I was texting, I have a bunch of friends who lived in Kansas who couldn't believe I was having you on the podcast today. So I was texting them and everything. I mean, your record speaks for itself, over 900 wins and three national championships and esteemed schools and everything. But, I think what's just fascinating is when people think about Roy Williams, they talk about the person first and not the wins or the coaches or things like that. And I think that's the message that Jerry and I are always trying to get across. Where did that come from for you? Is that something that came naturally?
Yeah, it was naturally, but I'll tell you this, my high school coach was the most influential male in my life. And I've told this story a million times, but it's exactly the truth. On my ninth grade year at the end of basketball, he was teaching U.S. history, and a lot of the guys that I played with and hung with were 2 years older than me, so they had him for U.S. history as 11th graders. And for some reason, they got him to talk basketball. I think to get off the subject of U.S. history, maybe. But he told him at that time he thought I could be the best point guard he'd ever coached. And so the next year, as a sophomore, I was on the varsity and I just fell in love with basketball my eighth, ninth, and 10th grade years. And I really tried to work extremely hard at it. But the most important thing that basketball did for me, it gave me a release, it gave me an out for some of the things that were going on when I was a kid. But the biggest thing is it told me that I wanted to do what he did because of how good he made me feel. And that truly was my goal and my dream, and to be able to make some young man feel as good as my high school coach Buddy Baldwin made me feel. And now during the games, the score of the game and who was winning was the most important. There's no question. But 2 weeks ago, we just had a 20-year reunion of the 2005 national championship team, and seeing all of those guys. We had one, everybody was there except one. And I mean, we had one guy had six children, and a bunch of them had two or three, and little kids are running around. And that feeling that I got like I was the granddaddy of everybody, that was the neatest thing for me. And it was a truly a great weekend.
What
Buddy
you
Baldwin
really
would have been proud, huh?
What's that?
Your coach would have been proud.
Yes, he would. And we talked about it quite a bit. He's still alive. He's 84 years old. And I talk to him once or twice almost every single week.
Awesome. Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is not where I was going to go with the conversation, but you opened up the door, so I'm going to enter.
Hmm.
And that is, you're talking about relationships.
Hmm.
I got a great story. I worked at the University of North Carolina with Jenny, who connected you and I, Jenny Levy, the head coach at lacrosse, and worked with Anson Dorrance, who's a really dear friend, and several others. And one of the things that I always wanted to do when I was there was I always wanted to meet, and this is no slight to you, but I wanted to meet Coach Smith
Uh-huh.
because I had followed Coach Smith from the time he coached at Carolina in 1961 when he came in and replaced Frank McGuire. And so he's an icon to me. He's a hero. And Jenny told me, says, Coach Smith still comes to the Dean Smith Center. And I said, no way. And I said, yeah, you can go down there and get an appointment with him if you want and talk to him. And I said, I'm doing that right now. And I went down there and I was filthy dirty with sweat running around the playing field and went down there. And I don't remember her name, but it was a his secretary.
In the woods.
What was the
Linda,
name?
Linda Woods.
Right, and she was with him for many many years.
She came in the first year that I was an assistant and stayed. She passed away 2 years ago.
Oh
Uh,
my.
Coach Smith from 1978, 79 season all the way to the end.
Well, that's good information for me too because I got to meet her and I walked into her his office and I guess he used to show up and chat, talk about basketball every day. And I said to her, I said, let me set an appointment a month out because I don't want to see him now. I'm too dirty and filthy and sweaty. And she says, oh, no. Coach will come out right now. And
Yeah.
she goes into the back and he comes right out and he comes over to me and he puts his hand out and he said, Dr. Lynch, what an honor to meet you. And I'm like, wait a minute, you got that backwards, right? It's an honor for me, like you can't believe. Anyway, we got talking for about 45 minutes, he and I. And I can tell you, coach, he made me feel relevant, important, valued, empowered, respected. Every wonderful high level emotion in the dictionary. I walked out of there feeling I was the most important person in his life.
Mm.
Now, I know that's not true. You know that's not true. But the fact in 45 minutes that he enabled me to feel that way said an awful lot about him. And
Well, I think he's the best basketball coach I ever saw in my life. And he was much better off the court than he was on the court. It was his
wow.
relationships with his former players, current players, anybody. And he uh, he instilled quite a bit of that in me. But I like people. And
Yeah.
so it's easy for me. We just came from dinner and the group, couple came over and said hello and about how their son went to school there. And he taught there, in fact, and he loved me. But that was the whole thing. With, as I said, it started with my high school coach, but then my freshman year, I went to North Carolina, played on the JV team, and was never good enough to move up. But I knew I wanted to coach, and Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge, Bill Guthridge, both knew that I wanted to coach. And what I learned from those two guys and Eddie Fogler, who was the staff for my first 8 years there as an assistant, was us with all three of those other guys, and it was phenomenal what I learned every single day.
Yeah. And that relationship game, you could talk to almost any coach and they'll tell you that's the most important game that they'll ever win.
Oh, it's
And
no.
right. And here I was being exposed to my hero and he was doing it on me. You know, he was creating this relationship. Well, it changed my life professionally.
Mhm.
I mean, I was not the same after that because everything I took from him, I just applied immediately and wound up writing a book about this.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with him, it was about relationships. And, I miss coaching tremendously. I've been out 3 years now, but I don't miss the games. I miss the practices and the bus rides and the locker room and the relationships. And, a neat deal for me is on Father's Day when I get, 50 or 60, Happy Father's Day, or my birthday, somebody sending it the text. But it was. And I think, as I said, nobody could. To beat Coach Smith on the chalkboard or dry erase board as it later on in his life with putting up the X's and O's. But that's not what it was. And I called him one time and told him I'd heard something that was really good and he would really like it. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's not about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmys and the Joes."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, wow." He had never heard that, but
The Jimmys and Joes.
it's about the X's and O's. But
Beautiful.
and that was, but that was what Coach Smith and Coach Baldwin trained me to do, and
Yeah.
it was the reason I say that never had to say one time I got to go to work, not one time in
Yeah.
my life. So
Yeah.
that was good
We
for
should
me.
all be that fortunate to be able to say that for sure.
Yeah.
I read an article recently, John, just let me do this, but
Yeah.
uh, I guess it was in the Hendersonville
Uh-huh.
uh, media paper or something. And I sort of want to break the ice with this one, but evidently you have just built an amazing, beautiful to die for home. Uh,
But Wanda built it. I told every builder she's built 5 or maybe 6 homes,
Mm-hmm.
and at one time we had 5.5. The reason I say
yeah,
half because a couple across the street owned a beach house.
yeah,
But
yeah,
now we're down to 3, so I'm a liberated guy kind of thing.
yeah,
We had Christmas in 2012 together in Flat Rock or Hendersonville,
Hmm.
North Carolina, up in the mountains. So we've had it since 2012. But
Hmm.
she built some beautiful homes, and I told every builder, I will never talk to you.
Yeah.
If I call you, what I'm saying to you is that you're fired
Yeah.
because I don't talk to you about trim or paint or flooring or receptacles.
Hmm.
At the end, there'll be enough money to pay you. But if you have trouble dealing with her, it's over with because I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting in this article, and I don't know if they're correct, but it said that Wando said that, hey, no basketball in this house. Did she really say that? And what did she mean by
Well,
that?
I don't know if she ever said that, but I mean, it's three right now. The three we have one in Charleston, South Carolina, where I am today, one in the mountains of North Carolina, one in Pinehurst, one of the golf capitals. There are three very different homes, but there are three that fit their location. And uh, she was not concerned about basketball. That was my job. And she was concerned about our children, our grandchildren, our homes where we lived, and all that kind of stuff. And she went to every game uh, at home.
Yeah.
Went to road games. Went to, of course, she's very bright, so she went to Nassau when we played there, Maui when we played there, and places when we played there. But no, it was about our family.
Hmm.
Mhm.
John, you were going to say something?
Well, no, I mean, it's, I don't think you can talk about Roy Williams, the basketball coach, without talking about Roy Williams, the man and the person, and your wife and your family and all that. I read when you retired in 2021, you I read a fascinating thing, and it said you just didn't believe that you were doing it as well anymore, that you found yourself second guessing yourself and being up all night. And I think it says in the article something like, in my first 31 years, I only did that twice, and then I found I'd done it like three times, and you knew exactly what games where you didn't think you got it right and you felt you were slipping. Can you talk about that? Because I mean, just like I think the humility, but also the self-awareness of that moment to say, now it's time to go. Like I want to go at the top, not when everyone's like, he's we got to get him out of here type thing.
Losing it. Yeah, I didn't want to wait that long, but no, it's very sincere. The first 31 years, two times I went home and said, if I had done something different, we might have had a different outcome.
Mhm.
And my last 2 years, I did that three times,
Yeah.
and if I couldn't handle that, that was the biggest thing. I mean, I just did not feel like I was doing it as well. You know, things were coming on the horizon, the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, and that I thought would really change our game, and I wasn't sure it was going to change it to a positive,
Mhm.
but that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, I've been gone 3 years, and there's some of those things that would be very difficult for me from what I believe in. But at the same time, that's all it was. That I just did not feel that I was doing it as well, and I couldn't handle that. And
Yeah.
so for me, it was time. And you know, my high school coach one time told me, said, "You coach a youngster, and you can still see something 30 years later that you gave him or her,
Mhm.
and it's your job to make sure it's something positive." So I didn't want to hang around, and I didn't want to, cheat my players or cheat my school, and that's basically what it was because we had some really good teams, and they made me look good many years, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. But at that point, the last couple of years, it was really hard, uh, hard to sleep, hard to feel comfortable about what I was doing, and because before I thought I never even thought about, am I doing a good job? That
Mhm.
ever in my mind. It was just that all of a sudden I screwed this up or I screwed that up, and luckily those first 31 years I didn't have to think too much about it.
I mean, your
Many.
first book, your book was called Hard Work. Like, so was that the confidence? Like, look, no one's going to work harder than me. Be more dedicated. Be more devoted to the players, to the game, to as the game evolves. Was that it? Like, you're just like, is that what you consider like define doing a good job?
Yeah, that was it. That my whole thing was I would tell prospects, I will call you more, I will come and see you more. I don't care if you're in Winona, Iowa, or Los Angeles, California, it made no difference. I will be there more than any other coach. One young man that we recruited and did not get, but he set it up for us to call all the schools. He had 6 schools, and he took calls for an hour and a half on Monday night. Everybody got 15 minutes. And at the end of my call, every time I'd say, okay, there were 4 other schools, 5 other schools. I forget now exactly what it was. I said, did the head coach call you at so and so, so and so, so? Because an assistant never made the call; it was always me,
Mm.
and so I lived off of that kind of attitude. And but it was something that maybe is out of fear. Maybe I had to feel like I was going to do that, or I wouldn't be successful. But the other part of it is I never really thought about being successful. I just
Mm.
thought about coaching that team to the best of my ability every single day. And at the end of the year, we could look back and say, well, you did a good job or you didn't do a good job. But when I was coaching them, I never thought of, am I successful? Not one time in my entire life. It was, am I getting everything I can get out of this team, these kids? Am I giving them everything they need? And have I convinced them in the game of basketball that sometimes you have to make sacrifices for a common goal? But if you do make those sacrifices and the common goal is reached, whether it's your conference championship, Final Four, or winning a national championship, and my goal was always to try to win a national championship. And we got there and did it 3 times and came very close some other times. But so for me, it was not. Always said this: if you get NCAA tournament time when they have the brackets and everything, I say, guys, don't look down the road. Let's
Yeah.
play this first game. Because I always felt like if you look down the road, that's where you're going to go down the road back home. And really the way that I tried to coach every single day, it was, did we do something today to help this young man? Did we do something today to help our team? And can we sustain it? But and so it's, somebody made a T-shirt up about, yes, we did okay, because I said, evaluated myself and our success. I said we did okay.
Hmm.
So that was all I had to say. I felt good about that.
You will,
Jerry, can I
go
just
yeah,
ask one thing on that?
yeah.
Jerry and I work with a lot of college coaches and teams, and these two coaches I'm working with, they're in the Big Ten, and probably this season, our wins and losses are probably a little less than expectations or hopes. Did you like, were you always good at like, I feel like for me, my job is to help them, not get too high after the wins and not get too low after the losses. And like you did, sort of evaluate every day. Did we do everything we could today to give ourselves the best chance to be successful? And some days on the scoreboard, it doesn't work out. And you just got to go back to work on Monday and do it again. Is that something that got easier, or did you always do that? Did you learn that from Coach Smith right out of the gate, or what?
I did it when I was in high school coaching. I mean,
Okay, cool.
so I learned it from Buddy Baldwin and Coach Smith and all the other mentors that I had. And I mean, I was a copier. I was not a very innovative. Coach Smith was very innovative and came up with new things. And if I saw something that I liked, I would copy it. I didn't care if it was Coach Smith or Bob Knight or Jerry Tarkanian or John Thompson, whoever it was, as long as it fit with, in my belief. If I wanted to copy it, I would.
Hmm.
But for me, the biggest thing is, I'll put it to you, there's only so many things you can control.
Mm.
You can't control how good that other team is.
Yeah.
You can't control how hard they work. You can't control, okay, if they do the right things. I looked, guys, I really did. I looked in the Constitution. It does not say that Roy Williams teams get to win all the games. The other teams have a right to win too. And so if I had if I did everything that I wanted to do, I was able to accept that. That doesn't mean it's nice. That doesn't mean it's easy. A lot of times go to bed and get up and stay up all night kind of thing. But that was that was it. And at the end of each season, I tried to look back on it and see if we had done well, and with our material, with our potential, with the injuries or problems that we might have had. But I didn't spend I didn't spend a lot of time saying, "Boy, you did a good job," or "Boy, you've won." such and such a game, or you've won this conference championship.
Hmm.
Is that we do the best we could do and then let it roll.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think it's very easy to be overly critical of yourself when you lose, and then you go back and you watch film and you go, "We're pretty good. Just they did this or they did that or they had a good night." And same thing, you can ignore stuff easily when you win, when you really shouldn't. And I think that's the challenge of coaching, right?
Well, I think one night I was playing. It was when I was coaching at Kansas. We were walking off the court and we had just played Kansas State, our own in-state rival. And one of my assistant coaches was walking behind me. Remember, we won the game. We won the game. We won the game because I was since they had that scoreboard up there, it was important to win.
Hmm.
They didn't have the scoreboard up there. It was just how did we play? And I felt like that night against Kansas State that we did not play the way I wanted us to play, the way I expected us to play. I didn't think that I did a good job. They did a good job, but my assistant is sort of not yelling at me, but we won the game. We won the game because I did not let the score dictate the way I felt. And there were a lot of wins that I was very disappointed in how we played, and some losses that I said, hey, we did pretty well. They just played great, and I
Hmm.
think that's that whole idea of controlling, being concerned about what you can control. The other team, I'll give you this example. Uh, most games, most games, I would go the whole first half without looking at the score.
Hmm.
And for me, when I walked off the court at halftime, I would look up and see what the score was.
Wow.
And the reason I did that is because I didn't want the score to tell me how we were playing, because I knew what we were supposed to do, this and that and this and that. And so I
Mm.
wanted to know myself. Now, against Marquette in 2003, I guess, in the Final Four, and I walked off court at halftime, we are up 29 at Final Four game. Uh, I knew we'd been pretty doggone good, but I was even a little shocked that it was that much. But so most games I would go the entire first half because I planned to practice every day. It took a long time to practice, a long time to plan it, 2 hours to practice, and after it, I evaluated it and okay, are we good enough in this area to beat these guys? Are we good enough? Did we spend enough time? So I was always evaluating that part of it, and so the same during the course of the game, I did the same thing.
Hmm. And your gut feeling, like you would just go and your gut feeling was, okay, we're doing well, and I want to coach based on what I'm seeing and feeling, not what the
Yeah.
fact that a couple of those shots went in or didn't go in or whatever. Yeah, what an interesting way to do it.
We play defense, and Jerry, you shoot it from the top of the key and bank it in, and we have a hand in your face.
Yeah.
We've done everything that we should have done. So if I look up at the scoreboard, you got three out of it, and we got nothing. That wasn't very good, but I liked our action, liked what we did, and so over the course of time, if we do that the whole game, then I was going to be very pleased at the end.
Yeah. Gotcha. Jerry, jump in here. Sorry.
Well, I just did sort of coattail on that. Like if you're boxing out and you're crashing the boards and sprinting your lanes and playing in your face defense and diving for the 50-50 ball and all these other little things, and you're doing them brilliantly, uh, more than likely that score is going to reflect that. So what you're saying is you're looking at the little things that are going on out there, not what people would consider the big things, the scoreboard, the assists, the number of baskets, and which I think is an important message for so many coaches. I mean, if a coach can take what you're saying now and adapt that, it's going to change their life.
I had one of
So,
my friends said, I'm going to try that. And so 2 days later, he gave me a call back, said it lasted 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
oh,
When he looked up the score. But it's so different now as a fan
yeah.
uh, because I sit in the corner above the tunnel where the players come in and go out. And so the ball's thrown up by the official and it's tipped and we get it and we go down and score. And I look up, yeah, it's 2-0. And then they come back and score, and I look up there again. That's 2-2, and and I'm good with math, but I mean, I look at it after every possession now. I think it's sort of unique because I never looked at that thing, but now I'm just a fan and sit up there and watch that scoreboard and make sure that the scorekeeper didn't mess anything up.
Yeah. John, let me go with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So, Coach, you were assistant coach with Dean Smith during the MJ's heyday at
Uh-huh.
Carolina.
Mhm.
So, take me into the huddle of this situation because I watched the game. UNC versus Georgetown for the national championship,
Mhm.
1982.
Mhm.
31 seconds to go. Coach Smith calls a timeout with Georgetown leading, I believe, by
Mhm.
1 point, perhaps. Uh, what an iconic moment in college basketball. What was the lesson learned there? What was the takeaway that most coaches can really relate to when we talk about this?
Now, Jerry, have you heard somebody tell you about me talking about that moment, or you really, is this really just off the
I
top?
have gone no, I have gone over this moment in my head dozens and dozens of time, and so I have heard what happened in that huddle, and I'm not sure what I heard is
Yeah.
exactly what happened. So I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Part of it is going to be very humorous,
Well,
okay?
it's iconic. It's an
Mhm.
iconic moment.
Oh, it was the greatest timeout in the history of sport. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll argue with anybody. So we're we're behind one, and timeout, ball's out of bounds on the sideline. And as the players come over, it was the first time that entire game or that entire year that I said, "Oh my gosh, we may not win the national championship." I was convinced we were the best team. I knew we were going to win. It was going to happen. But the look on those guys' face as they come over just hit me right between the eyes. And I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago.
Hmm.
And so I'm looking and everybody's got that, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Right.
And so we as coaches, Coach Smith kneels down and three assistants were kneeling down beside him. Coach Guthrie's on one side, me and Eddie Foger on the other side. And the team's sitting there, they're sitting in chairs. And he said, "This is exactly where we want to be. We're going to determine the outcome of this game. This is what we've worked for all year. We're in great shape." Now, guys, I'm being honest. This is my high school coach said, "Just tell the truth. You don't have to remember what you said." I thought Coach Smith was wrong, so I turned my head to the side and pretended I was coughing so I could look up the scoreboard because we were down one.
Just
And so I sort of just faked a cough so I could look up and see it. And he kept going. He said, "We're going to run lineup. I don't think they'll be pressuring us, so we'll take it out of bounds. And then let's run two and let's look for the lob. James or Sam, either one. And let's look for that. If we don't get it, let's penetrate and then go to the weak side. And if we have the shot over there, let's take it. And Sam, you're going to go for the lob. James, you're going to go for the lob. And so if we go to the weak side, you get back weak side rebound. And Sam, after that, you turn and you take the middle. So we got the outside shot. Don't worry if you miss it because we're going to get the rebound. And we have the two primary rebounding spots covered. And if they happen to get the rebound on a missed shot, then we'll foul them immediately. And there's no way they're going to make a free throw in this situation. And
Wait a minute. How do you say that?
all of a sudden, the look on everybody's face
Then
was 180 degrees. And so then that was we broke up the huddle. And as they're going out, coach, I'm standing closer to him at that point than I am this computer, it felt like. And he patted Michael on the behind and said, "Michael, if you get it, knock it in." And so we knew it was going to either be Michael on one side or Matt Doherty on the other, but we said which side we were going to go to. So we knew Michael was going to be on that side. So sure enough, they covered the lob. And so then Jimmy Black penetrated and goes to the weak side to Michael. And Michael went up to shoot the ball. And we had the rebound, inside rebound positions that you want. And the ball went in. And this is my humorous part of it, even more so, is that then the Lord or somebody told Freddie Brown to throw the ball to James Worthy on the other end. And James had such savvy. We watch it on the replay. The guy fouled him, and he immediately holds his hand. Two shots to the referee
yeah.
because he knew that it should be an intentional foul, and the referee agreed and called it a two-shot foul. So now we're up one, and the tough thing is that then at James missed both free throws. They shoot it from 75 feet, and I was directly in line, and the ball looked like it was on line for sure, but it fell way short. But Those guys came to the huddle and they had a negative look on their face.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. I'd fight a guy with a chainsaw to telling me that's not true because they had a negative look. And so then they did exactly what Coach Smith said and we win the game.
So there's a really important message for all of us here, and that is, as a coach, the team is going to pick up on your vibe.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to pick up on like where you are emotionally. If you look worried as can be and you're nervous and all of that, they're going to be nervous. But what I'm hearing and what I believe to this day that Coach Smith demonstrated was a tremendous hope, belief, confidence in his team,
Mm-hmm.
even though there's nobody on earth that can tell me he was certain that that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't be.
Well, he was very confident, but he gave us this first option to win. And then if you miss it, don't worry about it. We'll get to rebound. And if that doesn't
And
happen,
we'll do that.
we'll do this.
And
Retrans-
Georgetown's going to miss the foul shot,
yeah, so he
right?
gave him 3 opportunities to
Yeah.
win. That I do believe that was the greatest timeout of my life, and I learned so much from it. I really did. And
Yeah.
in 2005, as I said, we had the reunion 2 weeks ago of that team, and one of the last timeouts, I said, "Guys, I got nothing to say to you. Just catch your breath. We're getting ready to win a national championship. So for the next couple of minutes, think in terms of who you are going to hug first.
Wow.
Be running around, so just think of who you're going to hug first. Just catch your breath, defend like crazy here, and we're going to be the national champions." And so I think that kind of thing that I did get from Coach Smith, and even in that same team, 2005, we're down like 9 or 10 with 3 minutes to go. And at the reunion 2 weeks ago, we saw the highlights of that season, and we're down 9 or 10 at home to Duke. And I said, "This is perfect. This is perfect. And we're going to win this game." So, there were sometimes that you say things and that it backfires, but I felt like that the national championship game felt like down 10 against 9 or 10, and the Duke game at home, the last regular season game. But for that team, I thought we were going to win both games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the amazing thing, like as a coach, as Jerry said, right? When you're on the sideline telling your team to calm down, you have to be calm. Telling them to be confident, you have to be confident. What would, if you were in that huddle and Roy Williams would have made that talk back as an assistant, what might you have said in that moment? That would have been different, right? I mean, because obviously you learned because you heard him say this, and you're like, and you saw this massive transformation. So in your head, what would your talk been that day?
Well, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have said, "Oh my God, we screwed this up." I don't think I would have said that, but I mean, for Coach to go detail by detail by
Yeah.
detail. And so I did. I learned that, and I mean, it's something that I practiced and did a great deal of time myself. And I always felt like that we were going to win the game if they would, just like that night against Duke in the final regular. If you do what I tell you to do, we'll win this game.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow.
I've said many times that I only yelled at a guy 2 times if they didn't hustle or if they didn't use their brain. I never coached a player that wanted to miss a shot. I never coached a player that wanted his guy to score on him. And so, with those two things you can control. I used to say I'd hold a sign up that says, "Jerry is loafing," and try to make sure the TV camera saw it too.
Hmm.
Jerry's being dumb right now, not using his brain. And you get lucky too, but I think instilling confidence. The funniest one, the most peculiar one was 2017. 2016, we lost a national championship on the last second,
Hmm.
25-30.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My guys came from 10 down that night to tie
Mm.
it up. Marcus Page hit the most ridiculous, difficult shot I've ever seen anybody hit, and we lost. And so the next year, the first day of practice, I said, "Guys," I blew the whistle and everybody sprints to the center line. And I looked around and said, right here in front of me is a team that has a chance to win the national championship. Last year we played on the last Monday night, but right here, and I tried to visually, verbally, everything, look right at everybody said, we have the team that can be the last team standing. I believe in you. I trust you. But the only way to make that happen is you got to do your job every single day. So at the end of the year, you can be your best. And it was the only time in my life I ever let anybody mic me during practice.
Mm.
And so at the end of that season, we win the national championship, and we have the basketball banquet, and our media people played that tape.
Hmm.
I'd forgotten all about it.
Wow. Wow.
Unbelievable situation. Sitting there watching me say those things, and those guys were dialed in, looking at me, and it worked. But I said about every year, I think we've got the team to do it, but this time I really made it a point that you've got to do everything because it was such a disappointment the
Yeah.
previous year that we lost. Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson, our two best players.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that confidence is the biggest thing that you can give somebody. And I think if you do that, and false confidence is okay if it makes them be a better player, but you can't
Mm-hmm.
live on false confidence.
Yeah, it could work short term or whatever. I mean, how important, right? You're coaching this team, but then how much time did you spend on each individual? Because you're recruiting kids, and some of them are coming from a strong family, and some not, and some religious, and some not, and some need a kick in the butt and some motivation, and some need a hug. I mean, how important? How did you manage all the different people and individual needs within the team concept?
Yeah, it's hard because everybody does handle it differently. I had Tyler Hansbrough, and nobody worked harder. Nobody gave me more. A lot of guys were in the same ballpark with him, but I never had to say, "Come on, son, you got to work harder than that." I
Hmm.
mean, that'd be ridiculous to say. I mean, he'd kill somebody, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
Wow.
coaching him was different than Ty Lawson. I
yeah.
had put them on the same team, but I'd put my arm around a Ty and say, "You're the best point guard in the country, but you got to play like that tomorrow night. You can't do this and this, or
Mm.
you can't let the guy get an advantage because you don't put in your work." So
Hmm.
it is something, and I always felt like that. I'll never forget one player was having a bad practice, and I was chewing his rear end out the whole practice.
Hmm.
And at the end of practice, we're finished, and everybody's stretching before we go into the shower. And his father was upstairs watching practice, and
Did you know that while you were chewing them out, or no?
oh yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
That was my classroom.
yeah. Okay.
And so as he's walking off court, I yelled his name, and I went over there and put my arm around him. And Dad asked me about it later, and he said, "You chewed his rear end out the whole practice." I said, "Well, did you like the way he was practicing? I mean, you've seen basketball before." And he said, "But what?" He said, "I've got to ask you a question. What did you say to him at the end?" And I told him good luck at 10 o'clock on his math test.
Mm.
And he said, he told me that that's what you said, but I felt like there had to be something else. I said, it's good luck on your math test.
Yeah,
And because once we're out there
yeah,
with the lines, the basketball part of it was the best. And it was the only thing that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you got a hangnail. Don't tell me your girlfriend's mad at you. Don't tell me if that classroom time, that 2 hours,
yeah.
the important thing in the world was going on was right there at us. But so the parent did say something about he loved that part of it, and but it was his son was easy to get.
That speaks really clearly, brilliantly actually to the idea that good coaches really know more than their sport. They know the person that's playing for them in the sport. And they take the time and the effort. And that's what you were demonstrating. That's what I'm hearing loud and clear, that it's not like you're going back to him. The last thing you say is something basketball. It's like, I care about you. I love you. You're important to me. You're important to the team. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you get the good night's sleep and do well on that test tomorrow morning. So that's a very important message. A lot of the messages that you're talking about are kind of interpsychic. It's like they're not like, bam, this is a message. It's like you get that. It goes inside. The father felt that that was good, and Ty Lawson felt it was good. And it showed so much about how you care about. And again, we get back to the whole idea of relationships. John, you wanted to say something before we even started today about that last shot, by the way. I don't want to let that go. I'm curious about that.
Oh, I did.
Remember?
I just saw that you said MJ's shot was not the greatest in Carolina history, but you were talking about the one that you thought that was.
No, what I said is it was after the 2016 season. I told
Yeah.
Michael first
Yeah.
before the media or anything. I said if we had gotten, if Villanova had not made their last shot, if we had gotten the game into overtime and won the national championship,
Yeah.
because Marcus Page's three-pointer, the 4.8 seconds or whatever it was the most difficult shot under those circumstances I'd ever seen in my life, and
Yeah.
still haven't seen.
Yeah.
And so I told Michael, I said, yours is still number one. But if we had gotten into overtime and we had won the national championship, because Michael's shot, I can make that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever played, but you could make it.
Yeah.
There's not five people in the world that could
Yeah.
make that shot that Marcus Page made.
Yeah.
But Michael understood that. I mean, I Joel Berry was a big time player for us. Was the MVP of the 2017 national championship team. He missed a shot against Florida State when we were down one at the buzzer, but it was a terrible shot.
Hmm.
And I told him during the timeout, don't just go in there and throw up some crazy shot. You got to see the floor. If you have your shot, go strong because I
Hmm.
want you to be strong and try to get fouled and score.
Hmm.
But if you don't, you got to see your teammates. And so and he missed, he did. He went in there, drove in there, and threw up some terrible shot because he was confident that he wanted to do that himself.
Hmm.
Next day, Michael called and said, I just love Joel Berry. He was willing to take that shot. And I said, oh, Michael, he's so tough. It's unbelievable. He can live with himself, but it was not a good shot.
Hmm.
And I said that he had Cam Johnson, who, in my opinion, was the best shooter in all of college basketball, standing over there waiting for the pass in the corner with nobody around him.
Hmm.
And so Michael said, yeah, but coach, if you rein him in, you'll lose some of that value of him being willing to take the shot. And I
Yeah.
said, oh, I know that. I understand that part. And he said something else. And I said, Michael, I said, you won 6 world championships. Two of those you won when John Paxson made a shot and
Yeah.
Steve Kerr made a shot. Those
Yeah.
are the good rules. I said, that you passed because you didn't have as good a shot as your teammate had. He said, yeah, but coach, it's different. I said, it's not different. Why is it different?
Mm.
He said, both of those were game 6. If it'd been game 7, I'd have shot it myself.
That's pretty funny. So
Oh
fair
my.
play to him. But
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that's such a fascinating point, right? Because as a coach, you're always looking for the player to have the courage to take responsibility at the end, regardless of sport, right? It could be, a soccer player, a lacrosse player who wants the ball at the end or whatever. This says, give me the ball. And I think that's the art of coaching as well, is that dance of have the courage to want the ball. And you're going to have to take a few misses and say, well, you had the courage, that's okay. But then the discretion to recognize if there's one more pass. And that's the art of coaching. Because if you scream at the kid for taking the dumb shot, maybe he doesn't take the shot the next time. And I think it's just fascinating that someone like a Michael Jordan would call you the next day to talk about that because he recognizes that courage and it's unique. Not everyone wants that responsibility.
Most of the guys, I've coached guys and coached against guys that would have run the other direction.
Yeah, 100%.
But I do believe that the quality of the shot, it has to be determined in every time you shoot the ball. Is it a great shot? Is it a good shot, average shot, or poor shot?
Hmm.
And basketball is really simple game. You get the ball, and then I get the ball. You
Hmm.
get the ball, and I get the ball. The only way to break that chain and that thing that you have there is to get more offensive rebounds
Hmm.
because that gives you another shot.
Hmm.
Stopping you from getting offensive rebounds. So that gives me more shots, more possessions is actually what it is. And then once you determine that, then the quality of the shot. And I've always said, until the first day I coached to the last, the quality of the shot is the most important thing in the game of basketball
Hmm.
because it's points that you put up. They don't put on that scoreboard the number of times you dove on the floor or the
Hmm.
number of charges you took. It's points.
Hmm.
And so if I'm playing you guys, you're 2 starters on the other team. if we get better shots, we're going to win the game most of the time. And especially if we do the rebounding, that we're getting more of those shots. Now you have to consider, okay, you could turn it over or something like that. But it's a very simple game. During
Yeah.
the course of the game, I've got to get better shots than you get.
Hmm.
And get it on the offensive end and make sure you don't get it when I'm on defense. And so that was the thing. And I'll tell you, Joel, as we were going off the court, I said, Joel, we got to talk about this because you had Cam wide open in the corner.
Mhm.
So when I get to the locker room, Joel Berry's up apologizing to the team.
Mhm.
And so it was good
Wow.
there, but Joel felt like that he could make every shot. And this is the same guy that we win the national championship in 2017. And I'm going to miss this by one, maybe.
Mhm.
I think North Carolina made 6 threes. It could be 5
Mhm.
in the national championship game. Joel
Mhm.
Berry made every one of
Yeah.
them. Ankles that were swollen, black and blue. I wasn't even positive he could play,
Hmm.
but he was willing, and he was the only player on North Carolina's team against Gonzaga in 17 that made a 3-point shot.
It's amazing. I mean, Jerry, anything to add on
Yeah,
to it?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to just shift gears here because we were talking about Coach how much you learned as an assistant coach at Carolina from one of the greatest coaches ever. Uh, but you were in the ACC and very competitive. You have teams there that great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches. One of them happened to be Coach K.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, as a head coach, I'm just wondering, you guys were very competitive, you didn't like losing, of course, to each other, and it didn't feel really good, especially Duke versus Carolina. I've been down Tobacco Road. I know what that's like. It's fierce, but you became friends and you guys are close. And I'm just curious, what was your takeaway from him? What did you learn from Coach K in terms of something that would help your coaching? Was there anything in particular you can remember?
Well, I think that when Michael first came into the league, Coach Smith was in the league.
Mm.
And Michael and I have talked about it many times that at first, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but he didn't even really like Coach Smith.
Mm.
He felt like that's the standard. I've got to beat him.
Hmm.
At the end of Coach Smith's run and at the end of Michael's career, he became very much a fan of Coach Smith because all those years when everybody else in the league was shooting at Coach Smith, that he was the leader. So that's who Mike became. He was the leader. And what Mike Krzyzewski did is he made me a better coach. And I said that in a clinic that both of us did one time. And he said I could say the same thing, that Roy Williams and Dean Smith made me a better coach. But it was the rivalry was the best rivalry in all of college sports. I don't
Yeah.
care what sports you're saying. I mean, you can say Ohio State and Michigan. Okay, that's fine. But 5 days leading up to that Ohio State Michigan football game, you saw all the things on Sports Center.
Mm.
With the 5 days leading up to the first North Carolina Duke basketball game, you saw replays for 20 years. I mean, you could and I did it a couple times, sit there and I'd watch, minutes of a game 10 years ago, and I'd go do my run or my walk or come back and there'd be another game on. It's the only game that you would sit there and watch 10 years for the whole week leading up to that first North Carolina Duke game. So I think that each one of us, and I just learned so much from Coach Smith, but Michael Krzyzewski made you be better or you were going to lose.
Mm.
And so for me, those moments were something that were special. And Mike and I have a great relationship. We're
Hmm.
not bosom buddies or anything. Off season I like to play golf. He doesn't play golf. During the season, he's got his family and his team, and got my family and my team. And we don't go to dinner or anything like that. But going back to when we were on the National Association of Basketball Coaches Board of Directors, most of the issues we believed in the same thing in college basketball. And so for me, it was a guy that I really did enjoy uh, competing against. I enjoyed that rivalry.
Mm. How do you prepare your team for a rivalry game like that versus a different game? You're chuckling for those who are just listening to this. So yeah, what do you do?
Okay, in North Carolina, you got North Carolina, you got North Carolina State, you got Duke, and you got Wake.
Yeah.
And we had competed against Duke twice in the NCAA tournament when I was at Kansas,
Mm.
and they beat us in the national championship game in '91, and we eliminated them from the Final Four in 90, 2003
Mhm.
and 2002 or two,
Mhm.
2003. And so when I came back, I made a very conscious decision that I was never going to talk about Duke because
Mhm.
the fans and the media and 5 days of North Carolina Duke games, there was nothing I could say that was going to add to that. And I
Mhm.
wanted to beat everybody. So
Mhm.
my biggest game was North Carolina State.
Mhm.
So I put more focus into that, and the players and everybody laughed. But I did almost nothing different over any game the week that we played Duke. But the week we played North Carolina State, I made darn sure that they knew that I don't like this team. And we beat this team. And if you want your coach to be in a good mood, you better play your butt off. And so I had more information you need to know. I just talk sometimes. I was just playing in a golf tournament. Uh, Maybe I can't remember if it was the year before I retired or right after. And I'm on an eighth hole up above, and I see a guy down over to the right, terrible stance. His one foot's up on a log, and he hits the shot. It was really a good shot. And I said, "Nice shot." I'm 30 yards away. He said, "That's east way." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "That's east way." And I didn't understand what he said at all. And so I said something to my partner, who was a former North Carolina basketball player. I said, "What did he say?"
Huh.
And those remember guest kind of things. People drink a lot, and so I thought he just had too much to drink. And I watched him. He went and put his club and put it in the bag, and the bag was North Carolina State Wolfpack. So
Oh.
so what he probably said was, "That's the Keats way."
Oh.
Kevin was the coach there, and so we get in, and we win our flight, and they win their flight. So we're in this little playoff thing, and he said something again, and I just ignored him, and he said something again, and I just ignored him. And then he said something again, and I said, "Okay, let's get this crap straight. I want you to remember two numbers. I want you to remember 39, and I want you to remember 5. Remember those two numbers. Because during my career at Kansas and at North Carolina, we played the Wolfpack 44 times. We won 39 of those freaking games." And he said, "Oh, okay, I'm good." And we're friends, we laugh about it now, but it was just my emphasis was more on North Carolina State because I wanted to beat both of them. And if
Yeah.
Wake had been as good as those teams were during that time, I would have
Yeah.
said something
Yeah.
about it. So I never, I let the people in the media and everybody else take care of the North Carolina Duke. Well, they
Well,
were
and the
going
players take care of it. I mean, they circle it on the calendar when the schedule comes out. Like, there's nothing more that you have to do to get them focused and ready for that game. It's actually sometimes just stripping it away so they play basketball and don't get caught up in everything else.
to. I think so, and that I would always tell them, okay, there's only one team in the country that can go in here into Cameron Indoor Stadium and beat them
Hmm.
today. It's us.
Hmm.
And other than that, giving them confidence, and I really didn't do many things before we played.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jerry, anywhere you want to take this as we're getting nearish the end here?
I was just wondering, just curiosity. I'm out on the West Coast with John and done a lot of work with teams out here at Stanford, and Oregon, and so forth. Uh, how do you feel about, or do you have any opinion about the ACC now being invaded by some of these West Coast teams? I mean, it is called Atlantic Coast Conference. I was just wondering if you have
I
any
thought
opinion
it's
about
the
that.
All Coast Conference now.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I looked at the map. I didn't see Palo Alto on the East Coast, so I understand what you're saying. It's the sad thing in some ways because the closer people are, the reason Duke, one of the many reasons Duke and North Carolina have such a great rivalry, we're 10 miles, 8 or 9 or 10 miles
Right
apart.
down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
I mean, when a prospect comes in and visits Duke, he flies into Raleigh Durham. When he visits North Carolina next week, he flies into Raleigh Durham Airport.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know that if it's healthy for college athletics to have college players in any sport flying all the way across this entire country, playing a game, getting on a plane the next day, flying all the way back, and we expect them to be great students and great people, but it's what the world is now. It's what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
travel is easier now than it was 25, 30 years ago. But, the Pac-10, to me, should still be the Pac-10. And the
Mm-hmm.
Atlantic Coast should still be the Atlantic Coast. But
Mm-hmm.
the Atlantic Coast, I mean, guys, we go from Miami to South Bend, Indiana, and Boston. So but it's a different world, and I wasn't intelligent enough or didn't care enough to try to change it and be stubborn or anything. I said, who's on our schedule, we'll play, and if they're in our conference, we're going to try to play and try to beat them. But I'm not so sure that this is really good for college athletics. But TV dominates. TV's
Yeah. It is a different world with the portal system and the image and likeness and what have you. I've talked to several coaches who have retired, and they say, I'm just tired of it all, and I just, it's just it's not the same animal that it was once.
And I was very fortunate to do it when it was, there's always differences. There's always going to be somebody that'll do something they shouldn't be doing. But
Hmm.
for the most part, I mean, college sports has been such a wholesome thing.
Mm.
It's not just about money. And, kids, you want them to graduate and you want them to have winning records and you want to enjoy life. And now with name, image, and likeness, the dollar bill is the most important thing, and which is what the reason we have conferences from the East Coast to the West Coast and North and the Midwest and everywhere. And but I'm an old school guy, and if I were coaching now, and I'll also tell you this, when that referee steps in to throw the ball up, and it's Duke in North Carolina, it's still really freaking important.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
During that moment, uh, I used to tell my guys, it's not very important in the big things going on in the world, but we don't have any control over what's going on in the big bad world. But the
Mm-hmm.
next 2 hours, we've got a great deal of control over what's going to be happening here.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
And go from
it,
there.
it's a focus on why you play the game, why you coach. It's a focus on what's meaningful and what has purpose. And really, that's the bottom line. And as long as we don't let that other stuff interfere, and if we can focus on what is the meaning here and why are we really doing this, Are we doing this so we can become better teammates? We can be better versions of ourselves. We can go beyond the game of basketball, something bigger than basketball, and that is our relationships and our community. And you can abstract that to your family and what have you. In fact, a lot of the models that we use, John and I, we call it La Familia, which is the family. And what could be more important than being belonging to a family? I mean, that's what's really important. And as you say so well, you throw the ball up. If that's where your heart is at, then that's what really matters. The other stuff's going to go on, and how do you play through that is the question. Yeah.
Every player I ever recruited, I asked them a question. I said, what's the most excited you've ever been in your life? In your
Mm,
sport, what's the most excited you've been? And I'm telling you guys, it's almost 100%, but I'm sure it's 95, 96, 97. They tell me about a big team win. Gosh,
Yeah.
coach, you've seen our locker room when we won the conference championship, when we won our last game for the, first undefeated team, or we won the state championship, or we won this game to go to the state playoffs. I had one kid scored 55 points. And when I asked him the question, the previous game, he'd scored 55. And he said, oh, when we upset the number one team in the country to go to the state championship game, it's the most excited I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you just scored 55 3 nights ago. I said, that didn't. He said, oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I'm telling you guys, it's almost 100% that they will tell you that the most excited they've ever been is when their group, their team was able to do something. And I played on that. I would ask every player that in recruiting and talk to them about, the teams that win, the players are going to get the awards and rewards. My job is I had to win games or they're going to fire me. But my second thing is I had to help that young man reach his dreams and his own individual goals. And I
yeah.
tried to make sure that they understood we can do both of those. And
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, you mentioned, I mean, Jenny and Anson Dorrance, we had, when I was coaching at North Carolina, I asked somebody one time, an administrator, I said, how many national championship coaches have you ever worked with? And the answer was zero. And I said, right here on our staff, and I think at that time we had 8. I think we got a ninth one later on. I said, you have 8 coaches here on this staff that have won national championships. I mean, Anson Norris won 22.
Hmm.
And he's dominated things recently, and we're going
Totally.
to be really freaking good this coming year. And field hockey, I mean, it's just so to me every day that we're trying to be the best we can be. I always kept an eye on the other teams. I loved going to the other sport. The greatest sporting event I've ever been to is a College World Series, and
Mm.
every time our team makes a College World Series, I go. It's not just for Zesto's, the restaurant that says best cheeseburgers and milkshakes. It wasn't just for the cheeseburgers and the milkshakes because I tried to watch those people and pick up on some things that it might help me. But I think when you surround yourself with people, Jerry, like Jenny,
Yeah.
Anthony Dorrance, and
Yeah.
Mike Fox when he was coaching our baseball
Oh
team.
yeah.
I mean, Andrew DiBitetto's been to the
Yeah.
final 8 5 times in a
Yeah.
row in
Yeah.
golf.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
a thrill for
Well,
me.
coming to Carolina, and I want to share this with other people and yourself. Coming to Carolina wasn't a job for me. It was going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Carolina and I had the privilege of working, getting to know personally and talking over a 2 hour lunch with an Anson or a Jenny. And I learned so much more than I taught. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a class act, the
Mm-hmm.
whole place. Like I used to do a workshop at lunchtime. It was free. I never charged for it. And they would get sandwiches and things like that. And the coaches would come in, and we get about 25 coaches, lifelong learners, people who wanted to just know more and learn from each other. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I'm taking more notes than anybody here. I'm learning so much. And that's how I get to write the books. That's how I get to help other people. Carolina is a very, very special place. Chapel Hill is loaded with talent in many ways. Yeah.
And the greatest thing about it to me is that people care, and it's not
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
just about that bottom line.
Yeah.
The best you can possibly do, and then you help cheer the other guy.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate with the people that I was able to coach with, and I mean, again, it's just the kind of people that we had when I was still there, and I mean, they're still most of them are still there, but you surround yourself with good people, you're going to get better yourself if you pay attention to them. And I went to, I've seen their practices. I go to their games, whether it's volleyball or track or women's soccer, men's soccer, field hockey, men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse. I think one year, I think I made one game of every sport we had on campus.
Mm.
And that was a neat thing for me to see it from a spectator.
Well, I think it's incredible because I think Carolina is very unique in that. Jerry and I have both worked at other universities where it's very siloed and everyone operates on their own. And the coaches are looking for help. And I'm like, well, within your department, you have these amazing coaches. Like, yeah, but we don't really connect with them much. And it's sad. And Jerry and I just had Tara Vanderveer on right after she retired here. And she talked about how Stanford has kept her on as a coach mentor to
Mm-hmm.
help coaches coming through, and like what a wonderful way to use all that experience and skill to help coaches coming through and to bring the department together. So yeah, Carolina is very special that way.
It really is. I mean, guys, there's nobody can get more fired up at a baseball game getting ready to go to the College World Series than Roy Williams and Aaron Matson to see her win a national championship in field hockey, her
Hmm.
first year as a head coach. And she was player of the year like 4 years
Hmm.
in a row.
Hmm.
And so the more you get to watch excellence, the more you understand what it is. And
Hmm.
that's something
Yeah.
I've always loved.
And that gets back full circle to a book that you wrote, which is called Hard Work. And that's what excellence is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bottom line, no tricks.
Coach, thank you so much for your time and everything here today. This has been a really special conversation. We have coaches all over the world across dozens of sports who listen to this, experienced college coaches, pro coaches, and people just starting out. So, any final piece of advice for people who are on that coaching journey that you'd like to leave them with?
I told you about what the coach told me about every player you've ever coached. You've got to leave him something, and it's your job to make it positive 30 years later. I think that every day we have to realize that we're working with young people. And most of my Royisms aren't worth a darn, but one that I made up many years ago, and in fact, this last year at the Final Four in Phoenix, I saw it on a bus. Somebody put the logo up, the quote up on the bus, and always said that, Rome was not built in a day. You guys have heard that, okay? But it was worked on every day.
Mm.
And I've seen it, on a bus going downtown in Phoenix, and other coaches have copied it, but I'm not really an innovator, as I said. But I do believe if every coach uh, gives it everything you have, and it's not easy, guys. I mean, you make a lot of sacrifices along the way. But I would say to any coach, several things. I never said one time I got to go to work. I
Mm.
love my relationship with my players. It's not the games that I miss, it's the locker room, the bus rides, the practices that I miss. So,
Oh,
you look at all those kind of things, and you've got to decide how you're going to attack it yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to copy anybody else, but copy people's beliefs that you can cherish, that you can grab for being your beliefs.
Mm.
And there's an awfully good group of guys and girls out there that can teach you something. And every practice I went to my entire time, to see a high school player or it's another college team or a pro team, I don't think I ever went to a practice that I didn't learn and take it home with.
They didn't learn some things that we just said there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote some things down at every practice I ever went to in my
Mm.
life. And it might be, don't do this. That'd be dumb. Don't do that, boy.
That's
But
learning too.
that's right. But most of the time, I could learn something from those other coaches and still believe that to this day.
Mm. Coach, thank you
well,
so, so much for being on the Way of Champions. We truly, truly appreciate your time and everything that you've shared today. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure for us.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope your ratings don't go down, boys.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be a
I
problem.
sincerely doubt it.
All right. Wicked Wanda's going to wave at you too. She's sneaking in here.
Thank you,
Magic
guys.
Wanda.
Thank you. Thank you,
Magic Wanda.
Wanda. Jerry, that was pretty awesome.
I don't know. I'll tell you something. Maybe I just don't have a long-term memory, but I can't remember someone who is as genuine, authentic, vulnerable, yet has the most amazing experience in the sport of basketball, getting to four Final Fours in two different teams. Uh, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, but
I think it's nine. I think it's nine Final Fours.
nine Final Fours,
Yeah.
four with Kansas and five with, or vice
Yeah.
versa, or something like that. The man is obviously down to earth, got his feet on the ground. It's real simple, and he likes simplicity, and I picked that up.
Hmm.
Very simple for anyone listening to us. It's hard work. Be yourself, be genuine, be authentic. There's no magic wand that you can flash around out there. Once you're being yourself, people will appreciate that and they'll gravitate toward that, and people will listen to you. And I was blown away by him, to be
Hmm.
quite honest.
Hmm.
I'm not surprised, but to be in his presence for this long and to listen to him, uh, it didn't tell me anything I didn't really think that I knew about him, but to feel it, it was like that day I walked into Coach Smith's office. Same thing.
Yeah.
It was a feeling I got from him today.
Yeah. I
I'll
mean, I'm
I'll
just,
work I'll work
you know,
hard for him.
all the little details and then the big pieces, right? The big pieces, the relationship, the connection with the players, the one player who's been hard on all practice, walking off the court with an arm around him and say, "Good luck in your math test at 10," right? Like
Yeah.
the human being and the athlete. And then the small things like I was going to do every recruiting call. I was going to visit more than anyone else. Again, lots of people are jealous of you when you're at the top, but they're not jealous of the work that you have to put in to get to the top.
They don't even know about
They
that.
don't
They
even know
just,
about that. They just
yeah,
want
they,
that they want what
yeah,
you have,
yeah.
but they're not willing to do the work and it's the work, the physical work, the mental work, the spiritual work, all those pieces together
Mhm.
That's why Roy Williams had success in the wins and loss column, and as he might say, and I think what everyone says about him, more even more success in the human development
Yeah.
context.
Very humble, very humble. He called me last week to shift the time for today, and he said, I told him, I said it's really great to talk with you, and I can't wait to hear all your wisdom. And he said something to me, well, I won't take too long.
Yeah.
It's like, in other words, I don't have that much wisdom.
Yeah.
And he's definitely deferring. And I think we all need to, I think we all need to embrace this idea. Like John, you've heard me say this, like everything I know, I mean, has come from other people. And I'm basically the hole in the flute, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of things that I'm teaching came from other people, a lot of them, and then maybe put my spin on it. But he's that kind of coach, He's not saying, boy, I'm a great coach and watch me and I've got all the answers. No, it's like he learned so much from Coach K, he learned so much from Jimmy V at North Carolina State, and of course John Wooden. I heard some of John Wooden in there too.
Or like
Uh,
he said, he goes, I never went to practice to watch a recruit to do anything, and I didn't learn something. Like,
yeah, yeah.
again, what can I learn here to approach every moment in life is a pretty cool way to go about it for sure.
Yeah. And
So,
coaching of all, teaching is one thing. Let me differentiate. When you're teaching, you're in a classroom, and you're in a classroom for a year. It takes a year to start to really understand these emotional swings and
mhm,
stuff. With coaching, in 1 hour, in one game, you go through the whole lexicon of emotional changes and shifts of being ecstatic, being down, being scared, fearful, having grit, being joyful, all within an hour.
mhm,
And it's got a lot to, sport has so much to teach us as coaches. And I learned so much from the work I do about my own life. And
mhm.
I think that's why I continue to do it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening. Now, when we release this podcast, on October 6th, Sunday, we're doing our call for our certification mastermind program of 2025. So we're so excited to give everyone the details about that. That's Sunday, October 6th. So there is in the show notes here, if you listen to it before that date, sign up so you get the email with the Zoom link for that. We've got hundreds of people interested. We only have 25 spots. It's going to be a pretty incredible thing. I know, Jerry, you're as excited about it as I am. This is going to be pretty special.
It's it's I've said this before, John, and before I met you, it was a dream of mine. And then when I met you, it started to all look possible. And
Hmm.
because of the work that you can do,
Hmm.
and I couldn't do it alone. And but I had this thought 10, 12 years ago or more that somehow there are people who love the work that I'm doing and they want to go out and do the same thing. And I've had invitations through emails. How can I be what you're doing? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, you know what? It's time. Let's just train trainers. Let's
Hmm.
train trainers to go out there and not only just do the work that we're doing, but really get to know who they are by
Hmm.
themselves. Like, who
Hmm.
am I and why am I doing this? And to take that deep dive into a very personal soul, I call it the soul level, not just the head level. And
Hmm.
it goes deeper than the heart. And once I found out answers to those kind of questions, like who am I, where am I going, and who am I going to take with me, I realized how much better I got professionally
Hmm.
in my teaching, in my mentoring.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. You and I have talked about this, and so it's evolved as we speak into a mastermind program where
Hmm.
we're going to continue to take that deep dive, learning from our cohort things that we really need to know that's going to put us beyond anything that a book can give you or anything that a seminar can give you.
Hmm.
This is really stuff that's been well thought through, and we're in the process of developing a solid curriculum
Yeah.
to match that mission.
It's going to be awesome. So yeah, put your name on that list below so you get the information for Sunday. And also, if you miss it and you're late, you'll also get the recording of our meeting, which with all the information about it as well. So you're going to get all the stuff if you do that. Other than that, everyone, thanks again for listening, for leaving reviews, for sharing the podcast, for helping us grow our influence. Because your influence isn't neutral. Jerry's influence isn't neutral. My influence isn't neutral. Every time we walk into the room, we have a chance to make a difference, just like Roy Williams told us today. He certainly influenced both Jerry and I, and hopefully all of you. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week, everybody.